Welcome, dear viewers. Thank you so much for all the love you've shown to the channel over the past week. Starting this week, there will be exclusive scary episodes for our channel members. Join our membership at just 99 cents per month. Enjoy. I wake up gasping, my sheets soaked through with sweat. The same dream again. It always starts with that sterile hallway. I'm walking through NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, my footsteps echoing loudly despite the building being full of people. They turn to look at me as I pass, their faces blank and expressionless. At the end of the corridor stands my father, wearing his blue flight suit with the Apollo 18 patch. He's trying to tell me something, his mouth forming words I can't hear. Then the scene shifts. I'm on the lunar surface, the grey dust stretching endlessly in every direction. The Earth hangs in the blackness above, beautiful and terrifying in its isolation. Ahead of me is a structure that doesn't belong there. A perfect archway made of some obsidian-like material that absorbs light rather than reflects it. It pulses with an energy I can feel even through my suit. As I approach, I see something moving within it, a darkness with purpose. Then my father's voice finally breaks through. "Don't look back, Ethan. Whatever you do, don't look back." I always wake up before I can see what's behind me. Dr. Montgomery, my therapist, says these dreams are my brain's way of processing unresolved grief. My father, Commander Thomas Reed of Apollo 18, has been missing in action since 1972, the year I was born. The official story is that the mission was cancelled due to budget cuts. The unofficial story, the one whispered among the families of NASA personnel, is much more complicated. I never bought either version. How does an entire lunar mission just disappear? 3 astronauts, a Saturn V rocket, the command and lunar modules, all that equipment and manpower doesn't just vanish. But NASA had their story, and they stuck to it for 30 years. Until last week, when I received a package that changed everything. It came in a standard FedEx envelope, no return address. Inside was a worn leather notebook with my father's initials embossed on the cover, and a key card for a storage facility in Clear Lake, just outside Houston. The notebook contained only one entry dated July 17, 1972. They're sending us up there knowing what we'll find. Anderson says it's our duty, that what's at stake is bigger than any single mission. But he didn't see what I saw in the reconnaissance photos. God help us if we bring something back. The storage unit contained a single cardboard box. Inside was an old reel-to-reel tape recorder and several unlabeled tapes, along with a sealed envelope addressed to me in my father's handwriting. The letter inside was brief. "Ethan, if you're reading this, then things have gone the way I feared. Listen to the tapes. Follow the rules. Don't trust NASA. And whatever you do, don't look directly at the moon between midnight and 3 a.m. Dad." I played the first tape that same night. It started with static. Then my father's voice came through, steady but tense. "This is Commander Thomas Reed, Apollo 18 mission. Date is August 9th, 1972. If anyone finds these recordings, they need to be delivered to my son, Ethan Reed. What follows are the rules of Lunar Command. Breaking them means death, or worse." There was a pause, and I could hear him take a deep breath before continuing. Rule number 1. Never look directly at the lunar surface between local midnight and 3 a.m. without proper protection. Rule number 2. If you hear tapping from outside your module or habitat, do not respond, regardless of whose voice accompanies it. Rule number 3. Count your shadows at all times. If the number doesn't match the light sources, evacuate the area immediately. Rule number 4. Any equipment that disappears will return. Do not use returned equipment under any circumstances. Rule number 5. Maintain radio silence during lunar eclipses. Rule number 6. If you see another crew member outside when all personnel are accounted for, do not acknowledge them or let them in. Rule number 7. Earth should always appear blue. If it appears any other color, you are not where you think you are. The tape ended there. 7 rules. 7 fucking rules that made no goddamn sense yet chilled me to the bone. Why would my father record these? What happened on the moon? I've spent the past week listening to the remaining tapes and piecing together what happened during those days in 1972. What I've discovered is that NASA didn't just find something on the moon, they found a way to somewhere else, and my father was sent to investigate. Tonight, I'll begin the process of following my father's trail. I've taken leave from my job at JPL and flown to Houston. I've booked a room at the same motel where he stayed before the launch. And I've brought his notebook, the tapes, and the strange device I found at the bottom of the box. Something that looks like a compass but doesn't point north. It points up. The Astro Inn looks exactly like it does in the old Polaroid I found tucked in my father's notebook. A single-story motel with peeling paint and a neon sign missing the R in Astro. According to the date on the back of the photo, he stayed here the week before launch. Room 18. Of course. The elderly clerk barely looks up from his newspaper when I check in. Read, that's right. 3 nights. He slides me a physical key, not a key card, attached to a plastic rocket-shaped fob. Room 18, end of the hall. I freeze. I didn't request a specific room. He finally looks up, roomy eyes narrowing. Says here you did. Special request. But I didn't. Someone else made sure I'd stay in the same room as my father. The room smells of old cigarettes and cheap air freshener, 2 queen beds with faded comforters, a TV that probably still has dials, and wallpaper featuring cartoonish stars and planets. I drop my duffel on the bed farthest from the door, same as my father in the Polaroid, and set up the tape player on the small desk by the window. The second tape is labelled only with the number 2 in my father's handwriting. It begins with the same static before his voice emerges. August 10th, 1972. I'm recording this in the crew quarters at Kennedy. Launch is in 3 days. Anderson called me into his office today. He showed me the real reconnaissance photos, not the sanitized versions we've been training with. The lunar surface near Copernicus crater has changed. There's a structure there, something that wasn't captured in any previous missions. It looks like an arch or doorway standing perfectly vertical on the regolith. Anderson says it appeared sometime between Apollo 17's last orbital pass and our recon satellite 3 months ago. My father's voice drops to nearly a whisper. The Russians have seen it too, that's why we're racing up there. Anderson thinks it might be their doing, some kind of psychological warfare installation. But I've seen the measurements. That thing is over 30 feet tall and made of material unlike anything we've catalogued. No seams, no signs of construction. Just there. I pause the tape as headlights sweep across the window. It's nearly midnight. I draw the curtains and continue listening. I confronted Dr. Winters about the anomalous readings from the spectrograph. He admitted they've been detecting strange radiation patterns from the site for months. Not harmful, he says, but different. Like nothing in our physics textbooks. He's the one who gave me these rules. Says they compiled them from various sources. The Russians, our own unmanned probes, and something he called theoretical extrapolations. I don't like being kept in the dark. The tape cuts to static, then continues with what sounds like my father moving around a room. Something strange happened tonight. I was reviewing the lunar charts when all the lights in the building went out. Emergency power kicked in after a few seconds, but during those moments of darkness, I swear I saw something moving outside my window. We're on the 3rd floor. Nothing should be moving out there. When I looked closer, there was a handprint on the glass, from the outside. I've requested additional security, but Anderson says I'm just experiencing pre-launch jitters. I get up and check my own window, running my fingers along the glass. It's intact, but something about the darkness outside feels wrong, like it's watching me. My phone rings, startling me so badly I knock over my coffee. Unknown number. Hello, I answer. Silence, then a strange rhythmic tapping sound. 3 quick taps, pause, 3 more. Who is this? I demand. The tapping stops. Then a voice, distorted and distant but unmistakably familiar, says my name. It sounds like my father. Dad? My heart pounds painfully against my ribs. Don't trust the reflections. The voice is breaking up like a bad connection. Remember rule? 1, Rule 1. Never look directly at the lunar surface between midnight and 3 a.m. I glance at the digital clock, 11:58 p.m. The line goes dead. I try calling back, but get an automated message saying the number doesn't exist. Moonlight starts to spill through a gap in the curtains as the cloud cover breaks, almost midnight. I grab a hand towel from the bathroom and tape it over the gap, blocking any direct view of the moon. Just as I finish, someone knocks on my door. 3 quick raps, pause, 3 more. The exact pattern from the phone call. "Who is it?" I call, not moving toward the door. "Management," comes the reply in a flat voice. "Need to check your air conditioning." At midnight? No fucking way. "It's fine," I reply. "Come back tomorrow." Silence then. "Ethan." "Son, is that you? It's me, I need your help." A perfect impression of my father's voice, the same one from the phone. The doorknob turns slowly, testing the lock. I back away, grabbing my father's compass-like device from my bag. The needle is spinning wildly, not pointing up anymore, but rotating in complete circles. "You're not my father," I say, voice steadier than I feel. Another silence. Then a sound I can only describe as wet, like someone dragging something heavy and damp across the ground. It moves away from my door, down the hall. I wait 5 minutes before peering through the peephole. The hallway is empty, but there's something on the ground outside my door. A small puddle of grey liquid that reflects the ceiling lights in impossible ways, like a mirror pointed at the wrong angle of reality. I don't sleep that night. I sit on the bed with my back against the headboard, the tape player on my lap, listening to my father's voice describe the preparations for a mission that officially never happened. At exactly 3:01 a.m., my phone chimes with a text message. It's from another unknown number and contains only 4 words. Tomorrow. NASA. Basement level. The moon has vanished behind clouds again. I remove the towel from the window and look outside. The parking lot is mostly empty except for my rental car and an old blue pickup truck. Standing beside the truck is a figure in what looks like a vintage NASA jumpsuit. They're too far away to make out clearly, but they're looking directly at my window. They raise their hand in a slow wave, then get into the truck and drive away. Tomorrow, I go to NASA. Apparently, someone there is expecting me. Getting into NASA's Johnson Space Center is surprisingly easy when you have Level 5 clearance from JPL. I flash my badge at security, citing inter-agency consultation work. The guard barely glances at it before waving me through. My father's compass device, which I've slipped into my pocket, grows warm against my thigh as I pass the main entrance. I've been to JSC before for work, but I've never ventured below the main floors. According to the building directory, there are only 2 basement levels, B1 for maintenance and B2 for archives. Nothing suspicious there, but the text message mentioned a basement level without specifying which one. I decide to start with B2. The archives might hold records about Apollo 18. The elevator requires a keycard for basement access, but mine works fine. The doors slide open to reveal a sterile hallway lined with frosted glass doors, each labelled with a section and year range. I walk slowly, scanning for anything related to the Apollo missions. "Can I help you?" I nearly jump out of my skin. An older man with a military-style buzz cut stands behind me, wearing a maintenance uniform. His name tag reads Webb. "I'm looking for Apollo mission archives," I say, trying to sound casual. "Specifically 1972. His expression doesn't change, but something in his eyes shifts. Recognition, maybe. Or wariness. "Apollo archives are in Section 7. End of the hall, left at the junction." He doesn't move. "Thanks." I walk past him, feeling his eyes on my back. Section 7 is locked. My keycard doesn't work on this door. As I stand there contemplating my next move, Webb appears again, this time from around the corner I hadn't reached yet. "Special clearance for Apollo," he says flatly, swiping his own card. The door unlocks with a soft click. 15 minutes. That's all they allow at a time. Radiation concerns. Before I can ask what he means by radiation, he's walking away. I enter the room, and the door locks automatically behind me. The archive room is smaller than I expected, with only 3 terminals and a few filing cabinets. The air has a metallic taste, and the fluorescent lights buzz overhead. I sit at the nearest terminal and log in with my JPL credentials. Searching for Apollo 18 yields nothing, not surprising. I try Copernicus Crater 1972 instead. A single file appears. Lunar Anomalous Phenomena, C-Class, 1972. It requires additional clearance. On a hunch, I pull out my father's compass device and place it on the scanner next to the keyboard. The screen flickers, then displays Read, T authorization accepted. The file opens, revealing dozens of photographs of the lunar surface, focused on an area near Copernicus Crater. The first several show nothing unusual, just the typical lunar landscape of dust and rocks. Then, abruptly, something appears. Just as my father described, a perfect archway standing on the regolith, estimated at 30 feet tall. It appears to be made of a smooth, black material that absorbs light. Subsequent photos show the structure from different angles. In one, there appears to be movement captured, a blur where the center of the arch should be. The file notes call it photographic anomaly, but it looks deliberate, like something passing through. The final pages of the file contain transcripts of communications from an unnamed mission. The astronauts' names are redacted, but I recognize my father's speech patterns in one of them. Redacted. Houston, we're approaching the structure now. Confirm you're receiving our video feed. Houston. Affirmative. Proceed with caution. Remember protocol. Redacted. Roger that. Structure appears stable, no signs of... Wait. Houston. What is it? We're not seeing anything unusual. Redacted. There's something inside the arch, a kind of shimmer, like heat waves but more structured. Redacted number 2. I'm getting bizarre readings on the spectrograph. Nothing in our reference charts matches this. Houston. Hold position. Do not approach further. Redacted. Houston, you need to see this. It's opening. The transcript ends there. The rest of the file is blocked with a large red, classified stellar wind stamp across it. A timer in the corner of the screen shows I have 5 minutes left. I quickly search for stellar wind and find nothing. Then I try Lunar Command and hit pay dirt, a small personnel file dated 1973. It mentions the creation of a new division called Lunar Command, established to monitor extraspatial anomalies discovered during Apollo missions. Only 3 people are listed as personnel: Dr. James Winters, Dr. Alan Nichols, and 1 civilian consultant named Robert Webb, the maintenance man who let me in. The timer hits 0 and the screen goes black. The door behind me unlocks with a click, but I don't move yet. Instead, I pull out the 3rd tape from my bag and insert it into my father's portable player. August 13th, 1972, launch day. Something's wrong. Winters pulled me aside during the final medical check. He gave me a device. Looks like a compass, but the needle points to something else. He said if the needle ever spins continuously, I'm in the presence of what he called a threshold bleeder, something that's crossed over from the other side and hasn't fully materialized. The rules are apparently protection against these entities. I asked him what the hell we're really doing up there. He just said, reconnaissance, officially. Containment, actually. The tape hisses for a moment before continuing. The mission parameters have changed 3 times in the last 12 hours. We're now instructed to collect samples from the anomaly and, if possible, secure photographic evidence of what's on the other side. Anderson gave us modified cameras with specialized filters. Winters slipped me a note with an 8th rule that wasn't on the official list. If you see yourself, run. I shut off the tape as footsteps approach. The door opens and Webb stands there, his expression grim. Time's up, he says. Find what you were looking for? I stand slowly. Part of it. You're Robert Webb, aren't you? From Lunar Command. He doesn't confirm or deny it, but his jaw tightens slightly. You shouldn't be digging into this, Reed. Some things should stay buried. My father didn't stay buried, I counter, and I think you know why. Webb glances around before lowering his voice. Not here. There are cameras. He hands me a slip of paper. Clear Lake Observatory, 11 p.m, come alone. I pocket the paper and follow him out. As we reach the main hallway, he suddenly stops. One more thing. There's a new rule we discovered after your father's mission. His voice is barely audible. Rule number 8. If electronic equipment activates without power, destroy it immediately. With that cryptic addition, he walks away, leaving me standing by the elevator. On my way out of the building, I notice something odd. Everyone seems to be avoiding looking out the windows despite it being a clear, sunny day. The blinds in every office are drawn. At the security desk, I pause. "Nice day out there," I comment to the guard. He nods without enthusiasm. Guess so, hasn't been much sun lately. But as I exit the building, the sun is blinding, a perfectly normal day in Houston. I shield my eyes and look back at the JSC building. Every window is covered, either with blinds or what looks like specialized film. In the parking lot, I spot Webb getting into the same blue pickup truck I saw at the motel last night. As he drives past, he doesn't acknowledge me, but I notice something on the passenger seat beside him, what looks like an old-style astronaut helmet, the kind used in the Apollo missions. My phone buzzes with a text as I reach my rental car. "Check the trunk of your car." Despite every horror movie instinct telling me not to, I pop the trunk. Inside is a cardboard box containing what looks like specialized sunglasses with thick, dark lenses and a note. "For viewing lunar events safely, don't look directly at it otherwise. W." I put the sunglasses in my bag alongside the tapes and my father's device. Whatever happened on the moon in 1972, it's clear the repercussions are still being felt. And somehow, I've been pulled into the gravity of something much bigger than a lost astronaut. The compass device in my pocket has gone cold, the needle now pointing steadily toward Clear Lake Observatory. I check my watch. 7 hours until my meeting with Webb. 7 hours to listen to the remaining tapes and prepare myself for whatever revelations await under the watchful gaze of the moon. The Clear Lake Observatory sits on a small hill overlooking the water, isolated from the surrounding suburbs by a stretch of undeveloped land. It's a modest facility, primarily used by the local astronomy club and occasionally by NASA for public outreach events. Tonight it's dark, with only a single light visible through the dome's narrow windows. I park at the base of the hill and walk up the winding path, my flashlight beam bouncing across overgrown grass. The compass device grows warmer in my pocket with each step. By the time I reach the entrance, it's almost hot enough to burn. The door is unlocked. Inside, the main lobby is dark except for the soft glow of emergency exit signs. I follow a faint blue light coming from the observation room above. "Webb," I call out, my voice echoing in the empty space. No answer. Before heading upstairs, I take out the 4th tape and press play. My father's voice sounds more strained than in the previous recordings. August 16th, 1972, lunar orbit. We've been circling for 6 hours while Houston decides whether to proceed with landing. The structure is active. There's no other word for it. From orbit, we can see something like electrical discharges around the archway. Commander Beck thinks it's just static electricity from solar-wind interaction, but Jackson and I know better. It's responding to our presence. A pause then. Houston finally gave us landing clearance. We touched down 3 kilometers from the anomaly in 4 hours. I've checked the compass device Winters gave me. The needle is pointing directly at the structure, though it occasionally jumps, like it's tracking movement. God help us if that thing is mobile. I stop the tape as I reach the observation room door. Through the small window, I can see the main telescope, a 20-inch reflector, pointed toward the sky. Webb stands at the eyepiece, not moving. I knock softly before entering. Webb doesn't turn around. "Right on time," he says. "Close the door." I do as instructed. The room is chilly, illuminated only by the blue glow of various instrument panels. Charts and star maps line the walls, along with a large lunar map with colored pins marking various locations. One red pin is stuck in Copernicus crater. "Did you bring the compass?" Webb asks, still focused on the telescope. I take it out. The needle is spinning rapidly, faster than I've ever seen it. "Put it on the table," Webb says. I hesitate. "First, tell me what happened to my father." Webb finally turns to face me. In the blue light, his features look gaunt, almost skeletal. "Your father broke rule number 7. He saw the earth turn red." The statement makes no sense, yet sends a chill through me. Rule number 7. Earth should always appear blue. If it appears any other color, you are not where you think you are. What does that even mean? I demand. Webb gestures to the telescope. "See for yourself. I've calibrated it to the specific frequency, but use these." He hands me a pair of glasses identical to the ones left in my car trunk. I put them on and look through the eyepiece. The moon fills my view, cratered and familiar. Then Webb adjusts something and the image shifts subtly. The familiar lunar surface remains, but now there's something else, a sort of wavering distortion around certain craters, most prominently around Copernicus. "What am I seeing?" I ask, not looking away. "Thresholds," Webb replies. "Weak spots in the fabric between here and elsewhere. We've known about them since the early Apollo missions, but NASA classified everything. The public got sanitized images. And the archway my father mentioned. First artificial structure we ever found up there, except it wasn't built by humans." Webb's voice is flat, matter of fact. "Your father's mission was to investigate after our orbital reconnaissance spotted it literally appearing overnight in 1972. I pull back from the telescope. "You're saying aliens built a doorway on the moon?" Webb laughs humorlessly. "Aliens would be preferable. No, what we discovered is worse. The archway isn't a structure, it's an incursion point, a place where something from somewhere else is pushing through into our reality." He takes a folder from beneath the control panel and spreads several photographs on the table. They're clearer than the ones I saw at NASA, high-resolution images of the lunar surface. The archway stands alone on the grey dust, impossibly perfect in its construction. In several photos, there seems to be a shimmer within the arch's opening. "Apollo 18 was sent to determine if it was a threat," Webb continues. "Your father, Commander Beck, and Dr. Jackson made up the crew. They landed, approached the arch, and followed protocol by setting up monitoring equipment at a safe distance." He taps one photo showing tiny figures in spacesuits placing devices around the structure. "Then what happened?" Webb's expression darkens. "Jackson broke rule number 2. He responded to tapping on the lunar module during their first sleep cycle. When Beck and your father woke up, Jackson was gone. His suit was still there, but he wasn't in it." My stomach tightens. I remember the rule clearly. If you hear tapping from outside your module or habitat, do not respond, regardless of whose voice accompanies it. 6 hours later, they spotted him outside, apparently unharmed, spacesuit and all. Against protocol, Beck let him back in. "That violated rule number 6, I say quietly. "If you see another crew member outside when all personnel are accounted for, do not acknowledge them or let them in." Webb nods approvingly. "You've been studying." "Yes." Whatever came back wasn't Jackson anymore. 2 hours later, Beck was dead. Asphyxiation, according to the module's logs. Your father managed to isolate not Jackson in the equipment bay and made an emergency ascent to the command module in orbit. But he made it back to Earth, I say. He had to. Or how did these tapes get here? Webb shakes his head. He made it back to orbit. That's when he discovered Jackson had done something to the guidance systems. When your father looked out the window at Earth, it wasn't blue anymore. Webb pauses. It was red, and the stars were wrong. I replay the rule in my mind. If Earth appears any other color, you are not where you think you are. What are you saying, that he, entered another dimension? We think the portal leads to a place similar to ours, but fundamentally different. A parallel reality, if you like. Your father didn't come back to our Earth. He came back to somewhere else. I think of my recurring dream, the strange archway on the lunar surface, the feeling of wrongness. Had those been memories, somehow passed to me, or something more direct? If he didn't come back to Earth, how did his tapes get here? How did that compass find its way to me? Webb looks uncomfortable for the first time. Because he's been trying to get back for 30 years, and occasionally, when the thresholds align just right, things can pass through. Messages, objects. He pauses. People. The implication hits me like a physical blow. You're saying he's alive, in some parallel universe. We've been receiving transmissions for decades, brief, fragmented. GPS satellites occasionally pick up signals from frequencies that shouldn't exist, originating from the direction of the moon. Your father has been sending the rules piece by piece, warnings. He doesn't want anyone else to go through what he did. I think of the phone call at the motel, the tapping, the voice that sounded like my father's. Had that really been him, reaching across some impossible divide? Webb checks his watch. It's almost time. The alignment peaks in 13 minutes, one of the strongest in years. That's why you're getting contact now. Why the compass found its way to you after all this time. Alignment of what? The thresholds. They strengthen and weaken based on complex gravitational interactions we don't fully understand. Webb picks up the compass, which has now stopped spinning, and points steadily at the ceiling, directly at the moon. Your father sent this device as a detector. It responds to threshold energy. He walks to a small control panel and flips several switches. The dome above us begins to open, revealing the night sky, and directly above, the full moon gleaming bright and cold. Put these on, Webb says, handing me the protective glasses again. You'll want to see this. I slip them on just as the moonlight floods the observatory. Through the specialized lenses, the moon looks different, ringed with a faint purplish halo. As I watch, dark patches appear to move across its surface, like shadows without sources. What the hell? I whisper. Threshold activity, Webb explains. Watch Copernicus. I focus on the crater and my blood runs cold. There, visible even without the telescope, is a tiny black dot that seems to be expanding, the archway growing as the threshold strengthens. The compass in Webb's hand suddenly lets out a high-pitched whine. He nearly drops it in surprise. It's never done that before, he says, alarmed. My phone rings in my pocket. Unknown number. I answer hesitantly. Ethan. My father's voice, clearer than before. You found Webb. Good. Webb stares at me in shock. He can hear it too. Dad? My voice cracks. Is it really you? Not much time, he replies, voice breaking up. The threshold is opening wider than ever before. They're coming through. Who's coming through? I ask, but the static is increasing. Been watching you all these years. So proud. The connection deteriorates further. Listen carefully. They've been waiting, preparing. Apollo 18 wasn't the first, won't be the last. The moon is just the beginning. Webb grabs the phone. Reed, it's Webb. What's your status? Over. My father's laugh comes through the static. Still using protocol after all these years, Bobby? I'm beyond protocols now. They don't work here. What's your location? Webb presses. Same place, different flavor. Listen, they're opening all the thresholds tonight. They've been waiting for this alignment for decades. You need to... The call cuts off abruptly. Webb tries calling back, but nothing happens. He looks pale. What did he mean? They're opening all the thresholds? I ask. Before Webb can answer, the compass device lets out another high-pitched whine. Higher and louder this time. Webb drops it on the table, where it vibrates violently. This is bad, he mutters, turning back to the telescope. Oh God, I look through the eyepiece. The black dot at Copernicus crater has expanded dramatically, and now I can see others appearing across the lunar surface. Dozens of them, like growing ink stains on paper. They're not supposed to spread like that, Webb says, voice shaking. The containment protocols... He's interrupted by a new sound. 3 quick taps on the observatory's dome above us. We both freeze. 3 more taps, then silence. Rule number 2. If you hear tapping from outside your module or habitat, do not respond, regardless of whose voice accompanies it. We need to leave, Webb whispers. Now. As if in response, the observatory door locks with an audible click. The tapping resumes, moving down the side of the dome and around to the door. Then, a voice from outside, my father's voice. "Ethan, son, let me in, please." "Don't answer," Webb hisses, grabbing my arm as I instinctively move toward the voice. "Remember rule number 2. The tapping continues, methodical and patient. 3 taps, pause, 3 more. Then my father's voice again, sounding desperate. "Ethan, please, I don't have much time. The air out here, I can't breathe." Webb pulls me away from the door toward a maintenance panel in the far wall. "There's a service tunnel," he whispers. "Leads to the storage basement. We can get out that way." "Ethan," my father's voice cracks with emotion. "Son, I've waited 30 years to see you. Every fiber of my being wants to open that door, but Webb's iron grip on my arm keeps me rooted in place. I think of rule number 6. If you see another crew member outside when all personnel are accounted for, do not acknowledge them or let them in." "It's not him," I force myself to say. "Not really." "Smart boy," Webb mutters, working to remove the panel. "Whatever's out there, it's using his voice, his memories. But it's not your father." The tapping suddenly stops. For a moment, there's absolute silence. Then a new sound, a wet sliding noise along the dome above us, something heavy moving across the glass. "Webb?" The voice has changed, no longer my father's, but something off, still recognizable but with a strange, hollow quality. "Bobby Webb, you never told him the truth, did you? About Rule 0. Webb freezes, his hands still on the panel. "There is no Rule 0, I say, though uncertainty creeps into my voice. "He didn't tell you." The thing outside laughs, a sound like stones grinding together. "Ask him about the other missions. Ask him how many they sent before Apollo 18. Webb resumes his work on the panel with renewed urgency, not meeting my eyes. "Webb?" I press. "What's it talking about?" "Later," he grunts, finally pulling the panel free to reveal a dark crawl space. "Go, now." A loud crack splits the air as something strikes the dome hard enough to create a hairline fracture in the thick glass. The impact point froths with a strange grey material that seems to be eating into the glass. "It's breaching," Webb says, pushing me toward the opening. "Go!" I grab my backpack containing the tapes and crawl into the tunnel. Webb follows, pulling the panel back into place behind us. The service tunnel is narrow and dusty, lit only by emergency strips along the floor. We crawl on hands and knees, the sounds from the observatory growing fainter. "Rule 0, I pant as we move. "What was it talking about?" Webb is silent for several seconds, his breathing labored. Finally, "Your father wasn't the first. Apollo 18 wasn't the first mission to investigate the archway." "What?" "There was an undesignated mission 6 months earlier. No public record, no official designation. Just 3 astronauts and a modified lunar module. They found the archway before your father's mission and attempted contact." "What happened to them?" Webb's voice drops. "They came back wrong, all 3 of them. Like Jackson on your father's mission, but worse. They looked normal at first, passed medical screenings. It wasn't until later that we realized..." "Realized what?" "That they'd been replaced. Their bodies were the same, but whatever was inside them wasn't human anymore. 2 of them we contained. The 3rd escaped. Started opening new thresholds on Earth." A chill runs through me. "New thresholds? Here?" "Small ones at first, localized anomalies, places where the rules of physics bend. We established Lunar Command to track and contain them. Your father's mission was partly reconnaissance, partly an attempt at more direct communication." Webb pauses. "Rule 0 was classified. If you encounter previous mission personnel, terminate with extreme prejudice." The tunnel suddenly brightens as moonlight streams through a ventilation grate above us. Through the slats, I can see the full moon directly overhead, its silvery light unusually intense. Webb checks his watch. Almost midnight, the peak of the alignment. We reach a junction in the tunnel. One path continues forward, the other branches left toward what must be the storage basement. "This way," Webb directs, taking the left path. As we turn the corner, my father's compass device, still in my pocket, begins to vibrate against my thigh. I pull it out to find the needle spinning wildly again. "Webb!" He looks back, eyes widening at the compass. "Put that away." Too late. The spinning needle emits a high-pitched whine that echoes through the tunnel. From somewhere ahead of us comes an answering sound, the same 3-tap pattern we heard at the observatory. Webb curses under his breath. "Keep moving, fast as you can." We increase our pace, the tunnel gradually widening until we can almost stand upright. Ahead, I can see a metal door with an exit sign above it. Webb reaches it first and tries the handle. Locked. "Shit!" He fumbles in his pockets for keys. The tapping is getting closer, coming from both in front and behind us now. We're trapped. "The compass," Webb says suddenly. "Put it against the lock." I press the strange device against the door's electronic lock. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the compass grows hot in my hand, the needle pointing steadily at the lock. There's a soft click and the door swings open. We tumble into the storage basement, a large, dim room filled with old equipment and filing cabinets. Moonlight streams through small windows near the ceiling, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Webb immediately moves to block the door with a heavy filing cabinet, his face grim. That won't hold whatever's out there for long. I take out my phone to call for help, but there's no signal. Of course. "What do we do now?" I ask, trying to keep the panic from my voice. Webb moves to a large metal locker in the corner and enters a code on the keypad. It opens to reveal an assortment of equipment, flashlights, what look like specialized firearms, and more pairs of the protective glasses. "Now we follow rule number 3, he says, tossing me a flashlight. "Count your shadows at all times. If the number doesn't match the light sources, evacuate the area immediately." I look around. The room has multiple light sources, the emergency lights, our flashlights, and the moonlight from the windows. I count 3 shadows stretching from my feet. "I count 3, I report. Webb shakes his head. Look again. Carefully. I focus on the floor where my shadows fall and feel my blood freeze. There are 4 shadows now, the 4th one stretching in a direction that doesn't match any light source in the room. And it's moving, independently of my movements. "Webb!" My voice comes out as a strangled whisper. "Don't move," he says quietly, reaching slowly into the locker and pulling out what looks like a modified flare gun. "When I say run, head for the exterior door. Don't stop, don't look back." The 4th shadow continues to move, stretching longer, its edges blurring and reshaping into something that looks less and less like a human silhouette. The temperature in the room plummets, my breath suddenly visible in the air. From behind the blockaded door comes the tapping again. 3 quick taps, then 3 more. "Webb!" the voice calls, my father's voice again. The alignment is complete. The barriers are falling. He needs to know the truth. Webb raises the flare gun, aiming at the moving shadow. "Don't listen to it." "Tell him what you really found on the moon," the voice continues. "Tell him why you really sent us up there." "Shut up," Webb shouts, his composure cracking. The 4th shadow has almost completely detached from the others now, forming a distinct shape on the floor. A silhouette that resembles a human figure, but with proportions subtly wrong, limbs too long and bent at impossible angles. "You didn't find us," the voice says, no longer sounding like my father at all. "We found you. We've always known where you are. The moon is just the beginning." Webb fires the flare gun at the shadow. The projectile erupts in a blinding flash of blue-white light that burns away the darkness completely. The shadow shrieks, an inhuman sound that makes my teeth ache and my vision blur. "Run!" Webb shouts. I sprint for the exterior door, fumbling with the handle as Webb fires again behind me. The door opens onto the hillside behind the observatory, the night air cool on my face. "Keep going," Webb yells right behind me. "Get to your car." We race down the hill, the moonlight so bright it's almost like running in daylight. I risk a glance back and immediately wish I hadn't. The observatory dome is covered in the same grey, frothing material we saw earlier, and it's spreading down the walls like some kind of living organism. Worse, there are figures moving around the building, human-shaped but wrong somehow, their movements too fluid, too quick, and they're all looking directly at us. "Don't look at them!" Webb grabs my arm, pulling me forward. Rule number 1. We reach my rental car and I fumble with the keys. The engine starts on the first try and I slam the car into reverse, tires spinning on the gravel. "Where do we go?" I ask as we speed down the access road. Webb is looking at his phone, which is displaying what looks like a map with multiple blinking points of light. "My house. It's fortified. We'll be safe there while we figure out our next move." The compass device on my lap has stopped spinning, the needle now pointing steadily behind us, at the observatory or perhaps at the moon itself. "Webb," I say, my voice steadier than I feel. "What did it mean? The moon is just the beginning." He doesn't answer immediately, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Then quietly, "Play the 5th tape." I reach into my backpack and insert the next tape into the player. August 17th, 1972, lunar surface. We're approximately 500 meters from the anomaly. The structure, the arch, is active. There's no other word for it. It pulses with energy we can measure but not identify. Jackson took samples of the material. It's not stone or metal. It's something else entirely, something that doesn't match any element in our periodic table. My father's voice pauses, then continues with audible tension. "The readings match what we found at the other sites. It's the same material, the same energy signature. This isn't the only archway. There are others, dormant, buried beneath the lunar surface. And if our calculations are correct, they exist on Earth too. Whatever built this network, it's been here a very long time, and I think it's waking up." Webb's house turns out to be a deceptively ordinary-looking ranch-style home on the outskirts of Clear Lake, surrounded by a privacy fence and mature oak trees. From the outside, nothing suggests it's anything but a typical suburban dwelling. That illusion shatters the moment we step inside. The living room walls are lined with monitors displaying various data feeds, lunar surface maps, what looks like radiation readings, and several camera feeds showing different locations around Houston. A large central screen shows the moon in real time, overlaid with glowing points marking what I assume are threshold locations. "Welcome to Lunar Command's unofficial headquarters," Webb says, locking the door behind us. He places his hand on a concealed scanner beside the entryway, and I hear the distinct sound of heavy bolts sliding into place. The official facility was decommissioned in 1987 when budget cuts hit NASA. A few of us kept the program alive privately. "A few of who?" I ask, taking in the impressive setup. "Scientists, military personnel, people who knew the truth." Webb moves to a panel on the wall and flips several switches. Metal shutters immediately begin descending over all the windows. Most of them are dead now. Heart attacks, strokes, accidents, all within months of each other back in 2001. I'm one of the last. The implications are chilling. "You think they were eliminated?" "I know they were." Webb's voice is matter of fact. "Whatever came through those first portals has been playing a long game, removing obstacles, positioning assets, preparing." He gestures for me to follow him down a hallway to what should be a bedroom, but has been converted into a situation room. Maps cover the walls, lunar charts, Earth topography, and what looks like a timeline of events stretching back to the Apollo missions. Webb goes to a small refrigerator and pulls out 2 bottles of water, tossing one to me. "You should hydrate. It's going to be a long night." I catch the bottle but don't open it yet. "I need answers, Webb. All of them. Starting with what really happened to my father and the Apollo 18 mission." Webb sinks into a chair at the central table, suddenly looking every one of his years. "Sit down. This isn't a short story." I take a seat across from him, placing my father's compass device and the tape player on the table between us. The compass needle points steadily at Webb. He notices and smiles grimly. "It's not pointing at me. It's pointing at this." He rolls up his sleeve to reveal a strange scar on his forearm, a perfect circle surrounding what appears to be a small dark object embedded under his skin. Threshold material, a splinter from the original archway. All Lunar Command personnel were implanted with it. Helps us detect proximity to threshold events. Jesus, I mutter, staring at the unnatural-looking implant. You let them put that in you. We didn't know what it was at first. We thought it was just moon rock, unusual composition but terrestrial in origin. Webb rolls his sleeve back down. By the time we understood what it really was, it was too late. The material had integrated. Integrated. It's alive, in its own way, or at least responsive to biological systems. Webb takes a long drink of water. But that's not what you asked about. You wanted to know about Apollo 18. He stands and goes to the timeline on the wall, pointing to a date in early 1972. The anomaly, the archway, appeared suddenly in January 1972. One day it wasn't there, the next it was. Our lunar satellites captured the moment of its appearance. He taps a photograph showing a burst of light on the lunar surface. Initial analysis suggested it was just a meteor impact, but follow-up imaging showed the structure. Webb moves his finger along the timeline. February 1972, we sent the first reconnaissance mission. Unofficial, off the books. 3 astronauts, Williamson, Holt, and Phillips. They landed, approached the archway, collected samples. Everything seemed fine until they returned to Earth. The ones who came back wrong, I say quietly. Webb nods. At first, everything seemed normal. They passed medical checks, debriefing, the works. It wasn't until 3 weeks later that personnel started noticing changes. Subtle at first, unusual sleep patterns, sensitivity to light, minor personality shifts. Then Williamson disappeared from the secure housing facility. 2 days later, people started going missing in Houston. What about the other 2 astronauts? Phillips began exhibiting more obvious changes. Physical ones. His body was reshaping itself. Webb shudders slightly at the memory. We contained him in a specialized facility. Holt seemed less affected, so we used him to learn more about what was happening. He's the one who first suggested the threshold theory, that the archway was a doorway to somewhere else, and that something had come back inside them. Webb returns to the table and taps a command into a built-in keyboard. One of the screens changes to display what looks like medical imagery, CT scans and MRIs of a human body that's hideously wrong inside, organs rearranged, bones reshaped. This was Phillips, after 4 months, Webb says grimly. The changes accelerated until he was barely recognizable as human, inside or out. But his mind remained intact enough to communicate. He told us they needed more gateways, that what came through him was just a scout. I think of the frothing grey substance at the observatory. The material that covered the dome, was that the same thing? Yes, we call it threshold matter. It exists partially in our reality and partially elsewhere. It seeks to create more thresholds, more ways for them to come through. And my father's mission? Apollo 18? Webb sighs heavily. By June 1972, we'd lost track of Williamson, Phillips had, evolved beyond our ability to contain him, and we'd extracted enough information from Holt to develop the rules, protective measures against threshold entities. We decided to mount an official mission with proper protocols in place. Your father was selected for his exceptional psychological profile and technical skills. You sent them knowing the danger, I say, anger rising in my voice. We sent them with every protection we could devise, Webb counters. The rules, specialized equipment, modifications to their life support systems. What we didn't know was that the archway had evolved since our first mission. It wasn't just a passive doorway anymore. It was actively reaching out. I remember my father's words on the tape. It's responding to our presence. Webb continues, your father's crew landed on August 17th, 1972. Initial approach to the archway proceeded according to protocol. They set up monitoring equipment at the prescribed safe distance. Then, during their first rest period, Jackson reported hearing tapping on the hull. Despite the rules, he responded. And something took him, I finish. Yes, though took isn't quite right. It occupied him, used his body, his memories. When it returned, Beck let it in, violating rule number 6. Your father tried to contain the situation, but Beck was dead within hours, and the Jackson thing damaged the lunar module systems before your father could secure it. But my father managed to get back to orbit. Webb nods. Emergency ascent protocol. He made it back to the command module but discovered too late that the navigation systems had been compromised. When he tried to return to Earth, he ended up elsewhere. A parallel dimension, I say, still struggling with the concept. More like a parallel version of our solar system, but radically different. His last transmission before losing contact described Earth as red and wrong. Based on later communications, we believe he entered a version of our reality where the threshold entities are the dominant life form, where they come from originally. I think back to my recurring dream, the alien landscape, the wrong-looking Earth in the black sky. Had I somehow been seeing through my father's eyes? And he's been there ever since, for 30 years. Yes and no. Webb brings up another screen showing what looks like a radio transmission log. We've received sporadic communications, usually during threshold alignments like tonight. He's been moving between realities, searching for a way back to ours. The rules he sent us, they're not just for protection against threshold entities. They're navigation markers, ways to identify our specific reality amid the countless variations. I pick up the compass device, watching its needle now slowly rotate, as if searching. And this? He sent it to help me find him? We think so. It's attuned to him specifically, his biological signature. During strong alignments, it should point to the nearest threshold where he might cross over. Something clicks in my mind. That's why it was pointing up at the observatory. He was trying to come through there. Likely, yes, but so were they. Webb's expression darkens. Which brings us to our current situation. Tonight's alignment is unprecedented in strength. Thresholds all over the lunar surface are activating simultaneously, and we're detecting new ones forming on Earth. He brings up a global map with dozens of blinking points of light, threshold locations on Earth. They're concentrated in specific regions, the Bermuda Triangle, parts of Alaska, the South Pacific, and a dense cluster right here in southeast Texas. My God, I whisper. How many are there? Too many to contain, and they're growing stronger by the hour. Webb checks his watch. It's almost 2 a.m. The peak of the alignment will be at 3:18 a.m. precisely. What happens then? Based on your father's warnings and our models, a cascade effect. Thresholds opening wide enough for large-scale incursion. Not just scouts or small entities, but something bigger. I remember my father's urgent warning. They're coming through. The compass suddenly emits a high-pitched whine, the needle spinning rapidly before stopping, pointing directly at the wall. At the same moment, Webb's phone pings with an alert. He checks it, his face paling. Proximity warning. There's threshold activity within 100 meters of this location. He moves quickly to a weapons locker and pulls out what looks like a modified shotgun. They found us faster than I expected. How? I ask, grabbing my backpack. How could they track us here? Webb's eyes fall on the tape player. The tapes, they're not just recordings, they're beacons. What? How is that possible? Your father embedded threshold material in the magnetic tape itself. It's how he's been communicating across realities. Webb ejects the tape from the player and places it in a lead-lined box. It's also how they can find the signals. A security monitor flickers to life, showing the exterior of the house. The image is distorted, wavering like a heat mirage, but I can make out figures moving in the yard, human-shaped but moving all wrong, with jerky, too fluid motions. Above them, the moon glows with unnatural brightness. We need to move, Webb says, grabbing a go-bag from under the table. There's a panic room downstairs with additional protection against threshold energy. As we head toward the hallway, the lights flicker and die. Emergency backup lighting kicks in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. The compass in my hand grows hot, the needle now spinning so fast it's just a blur. "Webb," I say, my voice tight with fear. "Rule number 1 says not to look directly at the lunar surface between midnight and 3 a.m. It's 2:05 a.m. now." "Hence the shutters," he replies grimly, leading me toward what looks like a pantry door. Direct moonlight during an alignment can create a personal threshold, essentially turning a human being into a gateway. The thought sends ice through my veins. I follow Webb into the pantry, which conceals a hidden staircase leading down to a reinforced door. As he enters the code on the keypad, I hear a new sound from upstairs, the now familiar tapping pattern. 3 quick taps. Pause. 3 more. Then, unmistakably, my father's voice. "Ethan? Webb?" I made it through. I'm here. Webb freezes, his hand hovering over the final button of the code. "It's not him," he whispers. "Remember the rules." "But what if it is?" I counter. "What if he actually made it through this time?" The voice calls again, closer now. "Webb, it's me, Thomas. I crossed over at the observatory, but you'd already left. I've been tracking the compass signal." Webb looks torn, decades of training warring with hope on his weathered face. "The odds of a successful transit are minuscule. The chance of contamination is much higher. But not impossible," I insist. "You said yourself this alignment is unprecedented." Before Webb can respond, my phone rings, unknown number. With shaking hands, I answer and put it on speaker. "Ethan." My father's voice again, but this time through the phone. "Don't trust what's in the house. It's not me. I'm still trying to cross over, but something is blocking the thresholds. Something knows I'm trying to warn you." Webb and I exchange glances. The tapping upstairs has stopped. "Dad," I speak into the phone. "How do I know it's really you?" A pause, then. "The day before launch, I took you to Galveston Beach. You were barely walking. I told your mother it was to see the ocean one last time, but it was really because I was afraid. I wanted to remember something beautiful if things went wrong." My breath catches. It's a memory I couldn't possibly have. I was too young. Yet somehow I can see it. The Gulf waves rolling in, my tiny hand in my father's much larger one, the sense of both peace and foreboding. Webb makes a decision, finishing the code. The reinforced door slides open, revealing a small but well-equipped safe room. Inside. Now. As we enter, the lights throughout the house surge brightly, then explode in a shower of sparks. The phone call cuts off abruptly. Webb seals the door behind us just as something heavy slams against it from the other side. "Rule number 4, Webb mutters, powering up the room's independent systems. "Any equipment that disappears will return. Do not use returned equipment under any circumstances." On the monitoring screen, we can see the hallway outside the panic room. Standing there is a perfect duplicate of my father as I've seen him in photographs. Wearing his blue NASA flight suit, Apollo 18 patch clearly visible. His face is exactly as I've imagined it all these years, but his eyes are wrong. They reflect the light like polished obsidian. He smiles directly at the camera. "I'll wait," he says simply, then sits down cross-legged in front of the door. The alignment peaks in 73 minutes. We have time. Webb checks the panic room's systems. Oxygen, power, communications, all functioning on independent circuits. We can hold out here indefinitely. But the compass in my hand tells a different story. The needle has stopped spinning and now points steadily at the wall. No, not the wall. Directly at the moon, invisible above us. The 6th tape sits in my backpack, untouched. Something tells me it holds the key to whatever happens next. The monitoring screen shows my father still sitting patiently outside the panic room door, completely motionless. He hasn't moved for 20 minutes, doesn't fidget, blink, or show any signs of discomfort. Just stares directly at the camera with that unsettling, not quite right smile. "Why isn't it trying to break in?" I ask Webb, who's been checking the various defensive systems of the panic room. "That door doesn't look strong enough to keep out something that could breach the observatory dome." It's not the door that's keeping it out, Webb explains, pointing to subtle markings around the doorframe I hadn't noticed before. Threshold deterrents, derived from the same material as the archway but processed differently, creates a barrier they can't easily cross. I examine the markings more closely, intricate patterns etched into the metal and filled with what looks like a dark, crystalline substance. The same stuff that's in your arm, Webb nods. Similar, yes. We discovered that threshold material can be modified to repel its own kind if properly processed. It's expensive and difficult to produce, which is why we couldn't deploy it more widely. On the screen, my father tilts his head at an unnatural angle as if listening to something we can't hear. Then he speaks directly to the camera. The deterrents won't hold once the alignment peaks. Nothing will. Webb ignores the entity, turning instead to a sophisticated communications array in the corner of the room. I'm trying to contact the remnants of Lunar Command. There are a few old colleagues still active, if they're alive. I pull the 6th tape from my backpack, turning it over in my hands. Should we risk playing this? Webb considers it. If it's like the others, it contains threshold material. Playing it could amplify the signal, potentially drawing more entities to our location. Or it could help my father find us, I counter. The real one. Webb checks his watch. It's 2:40 a.m. Alignment peaks in 38 minutes. If that tape contains crucial information, we need it now. Decision made, I insert the tape into the player and press play. Static fills the room, louder and more distorted than on the previous recordings. Then my father's voice cuts through, sounding strained. August 18th, 1972, Command Module Orbit. Beck is dead. Jackson, or whatever is using Jackson's body, is sealed in the equipment bay. I've rigged the hatch with explosives in case it breaks through. Earth is visible through the window, but it's wrong. The continents are shaped differently. The atmosphere is reddish, not blue. Rule number 7 confirmed. I'm not where I should be. There's a pause filled with the sound of my father's labored breathing. I found a logbook in a compartment that shouldn't exist. It contains entries in my handwriting that I don't remember writing. Details of other transits, other versions of me who crossed over before. According to these notes, the thresholds connect not just to one alternate reality, but to many, countless variations of Earth, of our solar system, of ourselves. On the monitoring screen, the entity wearing my father's face reacts visibly to the tape, standing up and moving closer to the camera. Its expression has changed from eerie calm to something like alarm. My father's recording continues. The entities originate from a version of Earth where evolution took a drastically different path. They're not alien, they're what humanity could have become under different circumstances. They've been crossing between realities for millennia, establishing footholds wherever they can. The moon is ideal because of its proximity to Earth and the natural weakness in dimensional barriers there. Webb looks stunned. We theorized something similar but could never confirm it. The idea that they're alternative humans. The key discovery in this logbook is about the alignment cycles. They peak every 53 years. The last major peak was in 1972, when I crossed over. The next will be in 2025. During peak alignment, all thresholds amplify simultaneously, allowing for mass transit between realities. Webb and I exchange alarmed glances. 2025. This year. According to these notes, previous versions of me have been trying to prevent full-scale incursion for multiple cycles, sending warnings back, establishing protocols, the rules, but each time they've managed to push through in greater numbers. This time, they're planning something bigger. The entity outside suddenly places both palms against the panic room door. The threshold deterrents glow faintly in response, the patterns lighting up with a soft blue luminescence. I've found reference to what they call the inversion, their term for complete dimensional overlap. If they can maintain enough open thresholds during peak alignment, they believe they can permanently merge their reality with ours. They're drawn to our world because theirs is dying, used up. They want a fresh start. Static overwhelms the recording momentarily before my father's voice returns, now urgent and direct. Ethan, if you're hearing this, and somehow I know you will be, there's a way to collapse the thresholds. The compass I've sent you isn't just a detector, it's a key. Inside is a concentrated piece of processed threshold material that can trigger a chain reaction if brought to an active threshold during alignment. On the screen, the entity's expression changes to something like fury. It begins pounding on the door, the impacts reverberating through the panic room. The reaction will collapse not just that threshold, but all connected ones simultaneously. The downside is that anyone within the threshold's radius will be pulled through to another reality before the collapse. It's a one-way trip. Webb moves to a weapons cabinet and begins loading what looks like specialized ammunition into his shotgun. They don't want us hearing this. There's a natural threshold point near Johnson Space Center, beneath the old lunar receiving laboratory where they used to quarantine returning Apollo astronauts. That's your best access point. The compass will lead you there. The pounding outside intensifies. Hairline cracks begin appearing in the panic room door, despite the threshold deterrence. One final warning, son. Rule number 0 isn't what NASA thinks it is. The real rule 0 is, trust no one who knows the rules too well. Even those who seem to be helping might be compromised. Look for the shadows. They always give themselves away. The tape ends with a burst of static, then silence. I turn to Webb, the implication of my father's final rule hitting me like a physical blow. Webb! He's standing with his back to me, loading the last shell into his shotgun. Slowly, he turns around. I know what you're thinking. How long have you been with Lunar Command? I ask carefully, moving to put the table between us. Since the beginning. I was part of the first response team after the original astronauts returned. His voice is measured, calm. And the implant in your arm? When exactly did you get that? Webb sighs. June 1972. After we lost containment of Phillips and Williamson. It was standard procedure. All core personnel received them. Right around when the rules were established, I note, backing toward the communications array. Convenient timing. Webb's face hardens. Don't do this, Ethan. We don't have time for paranoia. The alignment peaks in 20 minutes. I look down at the compass in my hand. The needle, which should be pointing at the moon, is pointing directly at Webb. You said this compass is attuned to my father, I say quietly. So why is it pointing at you? For a long moment, Webb says nothing. Then he sets the shotgun down on the table, a gesture of peace. Because I was there, Ethan. I was on Apollo 18. The revelation hits me like a physical blow. What? That's impossible. The crew was my father, Commander Beck, and Dr. Jackson. That was the official manifest, yes. Webb moves to a storage locker and enters a complex code. Inside is a battered blue flight suit with an Apollo 18 patch, identical to the one the entity outside is wearing. Except this one has Webb stenciled above the breast pocket. There were 4 of us. Your father was commander, Beck was pilot, Jackson was science officer, I was security, the insurance policy NASA didn't acknowledge. My presence on the mission was classified beyond top secret. You never told me, I say, anger rising. All this time, you knew my father personally and never said anything. Would you have believed me? Webb counters. Or would you have assumed I was one of them? An entity using Webb's identity to get close to you? He has a point, but something still doesn't feel right. My father's last rule says to trust no one who knows the rules too well. He's right, but he wasn't talking about me. Webb taps the monitoring screen where the entity continues its assault on the door. He was talking about them. They know the rules because they created the situations that made the rules necessary. They wanted us to develop protocols, boundaries, limitations, which they could then exploit. A particularly violent impact makes the entire panic room shudder. The crack in the door widens. We're out of time, Webb says grimly. That door won't hold much longer. He goes to a floor panel and removes it, revealing a narrow passage. Maintenance tunnel. Leads to the garage. We need to get to the lunar receiving laboratory before the alignment peaks. I hesitate, torn between my instinct to trust Webb and my father's explicit warning. How do I know I can trust you? Webb looks me straight in the eyes. You don't. But ask yourself this. If I were one of them, why would I have shown you the tapes? Why help you understand what's happening? I could have taken the compass and left you at the observatory. On the monitor, the entity outside steps back from the door. It looks directly into the camera, and for an instant, its face shifts. The features remain my father's, but something moves beneath the skin, like countless small objects writhing beneath a taut sheet. Your father was my friend, Webb says softly. We made a pact up there, in orbit around that strange red Earth. If either of us made it back to our reality, we'd find a way to help the other return. I've spent 30 years trying to fulfill that promise. Another tremendous impact rocks the panic room. The door bulges inward, the threshold deterrents flickering weakly. One more hit and it's through, Webb warns, grabbing his shotgun and the go bag. You're cool, Ethan. Stay or come with me. The entity outside rears back for another assault on the door. On the monitor, I can see that its arms have elongated unnaturally, fingers extending into talon-like protrusions. I grab my backpack containing the tapes and my father's device. Lead the way. Webb nods once, then drops into the tunnel. I follow just as the panic room door explodes inward, showering the room with metal fragments. The entity's distorted roar follows us down into the darkness as Webb seals the tunnel entrance behind us. The compass needle spins wildly for a moment, then steadies, pointing ahead, toward the lunar receiving laboratory and the natural threshold my father described. Our last hope for stopping the inversion. Above us, the alignment approaches its peak. We have less than 15 minutes to reach the laboratory and collapse the thresholds before our world is permanently merged with theirs. If we're already too late, then God help us all. The maintenance tunnel is barely wide enough for us to crawl through, a claustrophobic concrete tube dimly lit by Webb's tactical flashlight. The air is stale and thick with dust, making each breath a struggle. Above us, I can hear movement, heavy, irregular footsteps tracking our position through the house. They can sense the threshold material, Webb explains between labored breaths. The compass, the tapes, my implant, were basically sending up flares. We reach a junction where the tunnel widens enough to crouch rather than crawl. Webb pauses, checking a crudely drawn map illuminated by his flashlight. The garage is 50 meters that way, he says, pointing left. We'll take my truck. Should be faster than your rental. A thunderous crash echoes through the tunnel, the sound of something large and heavy smashing through the floor above us. Dust and concrete fragments rain down as the ceiling dents inward. Move! Webb hisses, shoving me forward as the tunnel behind us collapses. We scramble through the remaining passage, emerging through a hidden panel into Webb's garage. Unlike the high-tech command center in the house, this space is deceptively normal. Tools hanging on pegboards, storage boxes stacked neatly, and a rugged blue pickup truck parked in the center. Webb rushes to a cabinet, yanking it open to reveal an arsenal of specialized weapons. He grabs several devices that look like flare guns similar to the one he used at the observatory. Anti-threshold charges, he explains, tossing two to me. Won't kill them but disrupts their connection to their home reality. Buys time. I pocket the weapons and check the compass. The needle swings between pointing at Webb and indicating a direction that must be toward the lunar receiving laboratory. Webb opens the driver's side door of his truck. Get in. We have less than 12 minutes until peak alignment. As I reach for the passenger door, a deafening crash comes from the connecting door to the house. The reinforced steel bulges outward, denting in the shape of what might be fists, if fists could elongate and reshape themselves like putty. They're through the house, Webb says unnecessarily, starting the engine. Seatbelt. I barely have time to buckle up before Webb slams the accelerator, crashing through the closed garage door in a shower of splintered wood. The truck fishtails onto the street as I glance back to see multiple figures emerging from the destroyed garage. Some wearing the faces of people I don't recognize, and one still wearing my father's face, now stretched and distorted like a melting wax figure. Don't look at them, Webb warns, taking a sharp turn that throws me against the door. Rule number 1. I tear my eyes away and focus on the road ahead. The normally quiet Houston suburbs have taken on a nightmarish quality. The moonlight is unnaturally bright, casting everything in a silvery glow that makes normal objects look alien and wrong. Houses we pass have their curtains drawn tight, but occasionally I glimpse faces peering out. Pale, frightened people seeking shelter from whatever cosmic horror they sense but don't understand. The lab is on the southeastern corner of Johnson Space Center, Webb says, speeding through a red light at an empty intersection. Built in 1969 for lunar sample quarantine. Discontinued after Apollo 14 when they determined moon rocks weren't biologically dangerous. If only they knew, I mutter, keeping my eyes on the compass. The needle is now pointing steadily ahead, directly toward our destination. Webb's phone chimes with an alert. He glances at it and curses under his breath. Threshold activity is spiking across the board, not just here, globally. Reports coming in from the old monitoring stations in Alaska, Australia, Peru. It's happening everywhere. The inversion, I say, remembering my father's warning. How much time? 7 minutes to peak alignment. Webb takes another sharp turn, tires squealing on the asphalt. In the distance, the Johnson Space Center complex comes into view, its buildings dark except for security lighting. What stops me cold is the sky above it. The moon, full and bloated, seems to hang impossibly low over the complex. Around it, the stars are wrong. Some are too bright, others seem to pulse with colors that stars shouldn't have. And extending from the moon's surface, visible even to the naked eye, are what look like tendrils of silvery light reaching down toward Earth. What the fuck is that? I breathe, unable to tear my eyes away despite rule number 1. Webb reaches over and physically turns my head away from the sight. The beginning of the inversion, threshold bridges forming in the upper atmosphere. Don't look directly at them. He floors the accelerator, sending the truck hurtling toward the perimeter fence of the Space Center. Rather than slowing down, he aims directly for a service gate. "Hang on!" Webb shouts as we crash through the barrier, setting off alarms that sound distant and distorted, like they're coming from underwater. Security lights flare to life around us, but there are no guards rushing to intercept us. The entire complex feels abandoned. "Where is everyone?" I ask as we speed past the main buildings. "Either evacuated or hiding," Webb replies grimly. "NASA has contingency protocols for threshold events. Anyone still on site will be in specialized shelter bunkers with threshold shielding." We skid to a halt in front of a low, unassuming building set apart from the main complex. Unlike the modern structures surrounding it, this one has a distinctly retro 1960s institutional design. A concrete bunker with few windows and a reinforced entrance. "The Lunar Receiving Laboratory," Webb announces, grabbing his shotgun and a backpack of supplies, "where they used to quarantine astronauts returning from the moon." As we exit the truck, the air feels charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. The compass in my hand is vibrating violently, the needle spinning in rapid circles. 5 minutes, Webb says, checking his watch. The threshold point is in the primary quarantine chamber in the basement. The building's entrance is locked, but Webb swipes a keycard that shouldn't still work after all these years. The door opens with a reluctant hydraulic hiss. "They never fully decommissioned this place," he explains as we enter the darkened lobby. "Too many incidents with the samples stored here." The interior is a time capsule, 1960s furniture covered in dust sheets, vintage NASA posters curling on the walls, old computer terminals with monochrome screens. Our flashlight beams cut through darkness thick with decades of undisturbed dust. "This way," Webb directs, leading me toward a stairwell. Basement level. As we descend, the compass grows almost too hot to hold, the needle now spinning so rapidly it's just a blur. The air gets noticeably colder, our breath visible in plumes of white vapor. "Something's wrong," I say, feeling a pressure building in my ears. "It shouldn't be this cold." Webb pauses on the landing, listening. They're already here. The basement corridor stretches ahead, lined with heavy doors labeled for different quarantine functions. At the far end, a set of double doors stands open, spilling sickly blue-white light into the hallway. "The primary containment chamber," Webb whispers. "That's our threshold point." We approach cautiously, Webb's shotgun at the ready. The sound of our footsteps seems unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. As we near the open doors, a low humming becomes audible, not mechanical, but organic somehow, like the drone of thousands of insects. Webb stops suddenly, raising his hand in warning. Listen. From within the chamber comes a voice, my father's voice, but clearer than on the tapes, more present. Ethan? Is that you? My heart leaps despite every warning bell going off in my head. Webb grabs my arm as I instinctively move forward. Rule number 2, he hisses, don't respond to voices. But what if it's really him this time? I counter. The alignment is almost at peak. If he was going to cross over, now would be the time. Webb hesitates, torn between protocol and possibility. The voice calls again, more insistent. Ethan! Webb, I don't have much time. The threshold is unstable. I make a decision, pulling away from Webb's grasp. Dad, we're coming in. Webb curses but follows, shotgun raised. We step through the double doors into what was once a sterile quarantine chamber, but has transformed into something impossible. The room's dimensions seem wrong, too large for the building that contains it. The walls pulse with ribbon-like strands of energy that writhe and twist in patterns painful to look at directly. In the center of the room hovers what can only be the threshold, a perfect archway of swirling darkness that seems to both absorb and emit light simultaneously. It's identical to the structure from my dreams, from my father's descriptions of what they found on the moon. And standing before it, back turned to us, is a man in a weathered blue flight suit with an Apollo 18 patch. Dad? I call hesitantly. The figure turns slowly. It's my father's face, older than in the photographs, lined with 30 years of hardship, but undeniably him. Unlike the entity at Webb's house, his eyes look human, tired but alert. He sees me, and his expression transforms with wonder and heartbreak. Ethan, he breathes. You've grown up. Webb keeps his shotgun trained on my father. Thomas, is that really you? My father's eyes shift to Webb, widening in recognition. Bobby, you got old, my friend. So did you, Webb replies cautiously. If it's really you, tell me what happened after we separated on the command module. You took the lunar module back to Earth, our Earth, my father answers without hesitation. I stayed to set the charges on the equipment bay where we'd trapped the Jackson thing. The explosion damaged the navigation systems. When I tried to follow your trajectory, I ended up elsewhere. Webb slowly lowers his shotgun. It's him, he tells me, voice thick with emotion. It's really him. I step forward, a lifetime of absence crystallizing into this single moment. My father moves to meet me, arms outstretched. Then he stops abruptly, looking past me with sudden alarm. Webb, behind you. Webb spins around as a new figure emerges from the shadows of the doorway. Another version of my father, identical to the first, also wearing an Apollo 18 flight suit. Don't trust him, Ethan, the newcomer says urgently. That's not me. It's one of them. Webb swings his shotgun back and forth between the two identical men, his face a mask of confusion. What the hell? I back away from both of them, the compass burning in my hand as its needle spins frantically, unable to settle on either figure. The compass, the first father says. Use it, Ethan. It's keyed to my biological signature. It will tell you which of us is real. No, counters the second. The compass isn't a detector, it's a key. Don't let him trick you into activating it. That's what they want. My head spins with confusion as I look between the identical men. Webb stands frozen, his weapon still moving between targets. 2 minutes to peak alignment, the first father says urgently. We need to collapse the threshold now, or the inversion will be complete. That's exactly what they want, the second insists. They need you to trigger the collapse while the portal is active. It won't destroy the connection. It will stabilize it permanently. I look to Webb for guidance, but his face shows only confusion and doubt. This scenario was never covered in the rules. The archway in the center of the room pulses brighter, the darkness within it swirling faster. Through it, I catch glimpses of another world, a red sky, twisted landscapes, impossible structures. 1 minute, the first father warns. Ethan, please, trust me. Don't do it, the second pleads. Look at our shadows. Rule number 3, count your shadows at all times. If the number doesn't match the light sources, evacuate the area immediately. I force myself to look down at the floor, where harsh fluorescent light casts our shadows. Webb has 1 normal shadow. I have 1 normal shadow. The first father has 2, 1 normal, 1 twisted and wrong, moving independently of his body. The second father has no shadow at all. They both fail the test, I realize aloud. Neither of them is my real father. Both figures drop their pleading expressions simultaneously, their faces going blank and cold. Clever boy, they say in perfect unison, voices no longer human. But too late. The threshold pulses, expanding rapidly as the alignment reaches its peak. The humming grows to a deafening roar. The two not fathers begin to change, their features melting and reforming into something insectile and wrong. Behind them, more figures emerge from the threshold, twisted parodies of human beings moving with fluid, impossible grace. Webb fires his shotgun at the nearest entity, the specialized ammunition causing it to screech and temporarily dissolve into mist. The compass, he shouts over the roar. Use it now. I look down at the compass, its needle now pointing steadily at the threshold. My father's words from the tape echo in my mind. Inside is a concentrated piece of processed threshold material that can trigger a chain reaction if brought to an active threshold during alignment. But which father was telling the truth? Will it collapse the thresholds or stabilize them permanently? With no time left to decide, I make my choice. Transcript recovered from damaged recording device. Date unknown. If anyone finds this, if anyone's still left to find this, my name is Ethan Reed. I'm recording this from, well, I'm not entirely sure where I am. I made the choice. As the entities swarmed through the threshold and Webb fell fighting them, I twisted open the compass my father sent me. Inside was exactly what he described, a small piece of processed threshold material that glowed with an inner light. I activated it and threw it directly into the archway. What followed was beyond description. The threshold imploded, collapsing in on itself with a sound like the universe tearing. A shockwave of energy pulsed outward, disintegrating the entities nearest to it. Webb and I were thrown against the wall. The last thing I saw before losing consciousness was the threshold shrinking to a pinpoint of light, then expanding again in a final, blinding flash. When I came to, Webb was gone. The laboratory was intact, but different. Subtle changes in color and texture. The air tastes wrong. The gravity feels slightly off. My father's warning was accurate. Anyone within the threshold's radius would be pulled through to another reality before the collapse. But he didn't specify which reality. I found my way outside. The Johnson Space Center still stands, but it's abandoned, overgrown with vegetation I don't recognize. The sky is a perpetual amber twilight, and there are 2 moons, one familiar, one smaller, and tinged green. I've been here 3 days now by my watch. I haven't encountered any other humans, but I know I'm not alone. There are movements in the underbrush, whispers in the wind. Sometimes I find footprints that start and stop for no reason, as if something stepped briefly into this reality then out again. The compass survived, but the needle spins aimlessly now, unable to find a connection to my father or to my home reality. The tapes are useless without a power source, their messages lost. I believe I succeeded in collapsing the thresholds, at least the ones connecting directly to my Earth. The inversion was stopped. But at what cost? Am I in the entity's home reality, some third variant, or in a pocket dimension created by the threshold collapse itself? Yesterday, I found something that gives me hope, scratched into a wall of what used to be mission control, a message. T. Reed was here. 8.17.1994, and below it, a crude drawing of the compass device. My father was here at some point. Perhaps still is. Perhaps this is where he's been all along, jumping between adjacent realities, seeking a way home. I'm going to follow his trail. The NASA buildings here contain equipment I can use, research I can study. If he found a way to send messages across realities, the tapes, the compass, then perhaps I can do the same. For anyone who finds this recording, the rules still apply, even here. Maybe especially here. The archways are gone, but the barriers between worlds remain thin. Watch your shadows. Don't answer unknown calls. And if Earth ever appears blue again, run toward it with everything you have. This is Ethan Reed, son of Commander Thomas Reed, Apollo 18. I'm still alive, still searching. And if there's a way back home, I'll find it. Just like my father did. Recording ends. Dr. Wilson sets down the transcript, her hand trembling slightly. Outside her office window at the Johnson Space Center, preparations for the Artemis mission to return humans to the moon continue at a fevered pace. She picks up her secure phone and dials a number few people know exists. "Sir, it's Wilson. We've recovered another recording. Yes, same signature as the others. That makes 17 since we resumed lunar operations." She listens to the response, then looks down at a small object on her desk. A compass-like device with a needle that points steadily upward. "Yes, sir. I understand the risks. But if there's even a chance Reed and his son are still out there..." "No, sir. The moon isn't just a stepping stone to Mars. It never was." She hangs up and turns to the window, looking at the faint outline of the moon visible even in daylight. For a brief moment, she thinks she sees something move across its surface, a darkness with purpose. She quickly averts her eyes and closes the blinds. Some rules, it seems, are still worth following.